In my last video, I said I wanted to talk about a controversial topic about the most hated character in the Sonic franchise. I didn't say who it is, but it's Christopher Thorndyke from Sonic X. Now, hear me out. I know and understand why Chris is so hated and what makes him so unlikable. He's creepy, he's selfish, and he's unrelatable. I can see those, but if anything, I think it just makes him a poorly written character. And when it comes to poorly written characters, I tend to go easy on them because I want to see their potential. Don't take this the wrong way, it's just me. I don't have a lot of hate. I'm not easily angered. I don't hold grudges. I just have a different perspective. Plus, I really don't see why I should keep on hating a fictional character that's over 20 years old and therefore cannot hurt me. I don't see why I have to make something that I don't like and turn something into even worse. I think it's unhealthy to do so. So why not, instead of making them worse, turn them into something that appeals to you? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite Chris as a character as a concept. Part 1. His background. Everyone says that he's not relatable, and yeah, I'm not going to say anything. There's nothing relatable about Chris. He's filthy, stinking rich. So what am I going to do? Let's start with his parents, Nelson and Lindsay. They care about Chris just as much as the anime versions do, except they're constantly fighting each other, and sometimes screaming. No matter what the predicament or occasion, even when having a family dinner or when Chris is in danger, they will blame and scream at each other, leading them to barely show any affection for their son. As bad as the argument gets, there's also signs of a divorce, i.e. lack of affection, loss of connection, loss of respect, unresolved conflicts, etc. It has been going on since Chris was 8, and Chris and everyone else, i.e. Chuck, Tanaka, and Ella, try to help, but every time they do so, they get yelled at to bow out, even Chris. He loves his parents and is so terrified of them getting a divorce that he's in denial about the probability, which isn't good for his mental health. It's causing him to develop tons of self-loathing, where he will isolate himself to the point where he could barely hang out with his friends, and immense stress, which affects his grades, causing him to barely pass his classes. Part 2. His personality. As mentioned before, the potential for divorce and his denial about it are causing Chris enough stress and self-loathing that are affecting him personally. But how though? The stress makes it hard for him to focus. He even has to go to touring after school just to keep his grades up. Now, Chris is never a good student to start with, but he cares about his education enough that he wants to graduate. He takes it so seriously that he won't sacrifice it for an adventure with Sonic. Whereas for self-loathing, he's been constantly blaming himself for not doing anything to stop the fights, making him feel worthless and a coward, which would nurture a short temper and a craving for admiration. And it causes him to lash out on other people, even his own friends, when the pressure is high. He does still care about his safety and the safety of other people, especially when Eggman is involved. Chris is terrified of Eggman since they first met, and since then he doesn't want to join in any adventure with Sonic if the mad scientist is getting involved, and if Chris ever gets dragged into it, he will run and hide until it's over. But he'll go out of his way to try to protect his friends from Eggman. Ever since Sonic and his friends came to Chris's world, however, he becomes more calm and reserved because the adventures becomes a coping mechanism where he doesn't focus on his parents' potential divorce. He's focused on the moment and enjoying himself. However, he gets much needed character development throughout the series. Part 3. His role in the series. Everyone says that Chris is a spotlight hugger and a creator's pet. While I don't agree that he's the creator's pet thing, Zavok and the Deadly Six took the crown for it. I can agree that he takes a lot of space throughout the series, at least in Season 1. So how can I change that? Simple. Just give him less screen time. By having Season 1 be about the human characters with with their dynamic with the Anther cast. Have an episode of Chuck with Tails. Have an episode of Topaz and Rouge. Have an episode with Ella and Amy. Have an episode about Sam and Sonic. Have an episode about Chris and Sonic, and another with Amy. You'll get the gesture. I watched the original series as a whole, and I noticed that there were hints about his loneliness. But I don't think they're good enough nor strong enough that it makes me feel anything to indicate his loneliness. So have Chris's background be shown through flashbacks and show the chemistry he has with his human friends, both the good and the bad. Season 2, however, should have him sign life on the adventures, with a few exceptions, and be an adaptation of the games more, with only 2 episodes dedicated to him, particularly the last 2 episodes, being about saying goodbye to Sonic and his parents officially getting divorced, and Chris did not handle it very well, and tries to stall them, not stopping Sonic and his friends from coming home. They pick up on what's going on and keep pressuring him while he's stalling them, until Chris gives in and confesses everything. They could have been mad, but instead they listen to him and spend their last day with Chris before going home. I think season 3 is perfect, with a few exceptions. In the anime, Chris went to Sonic's world without his friends, despite the fact that his friends wanted to go too. The fans tried to defend it by claiming that Chris didn't want to risk their safety, but I don't agree. That was selfish, and he should have been reprimanded from doing so. So I decided to change that scene by having Chris going to Sonic's world by accident, by having him freak out over a cockroach because he can't stand them, and causing him to accidentally whack an important piece of the portal to Sonic's world that causes him to get sucked in. Also, I want to ask something for season 3. Have Chris, his friends, and family fix the portal and get into Sonic's world in the middle of the Madarex saga and battle alongside with the heroes. That would have been really cool, and I would love to see that to see how much their friendship is. Part 4. His relationship with the cast. The main reason Chris is considered creepy is because he treats Sonic his best friend despite the fact that he barely hangs out with him. I'll admit, it does add up why the haters will call him that. But then again, it also adds why Chris is so poorly written. I mean, the series wants you to feel how close they are. It just fails spectacularly. So why not fix it by starting with Sonic himself? Sonic always has Chris's back ever since the latter saved him. They've been friends and would always go into adventures together, with few exceptions, and have some conversations together. Sonic would always encourage and reassure Chris depending on the subject to do something he wants or what he needs, such as learning from his mistakes to get better grades, or reassuring him that fear is human, causing Chris to slowly develop some confidence. Tails might as well be Chris's tutor, but they get along well. And look out for each other. Tails is one who teaches Chris that mistakes means process, and he shouldn't rush or overthink unnecessary things for his classes. When there's no adventure, or when there isn't anything about his education, Tails and Chris will play together by playing games or doing some sports. Amy is arguably the closest friend for Chris out of all the Anthropaths, because she brings out the best in him. He's less temperamental, he's nicer, and he has more self-control. She's even the reason why Chris is becoming a better friend to his human friends. Chris doesn't tell anyone about his fears about his parents' potential divorce, but he shares that with Amy because he trusts her, and she promised him that she won't tell anyone, not even with Sonic. In short, Chris has a character development thanks to the primary cast. I wish I could go on with the rest of the Anther cast and his human friends, but I can't go through all of them. Well, I think I covered up the basics. What do you guys think? Do you think they're great concepts or not? If so, why? And don't tell me you just don't like it and not explain it. Sorry, but Chris is so hated. If I were to hear you guys say you just don't like it, it's going to make me think that you guys are just making an excuse to express your hatred for a character. Well, that's all I have for today, folks. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Bye.